Hello everyone, viewers. We all know the story of Genesis. The 7 days of creation, Adam and Eve in the garden, Cain and Abel, Noah's Ark. It's a foundational story, a bedrock of history and faith. But what if I told you there's another version? A secret history, whispered from the lips of an angel to Moses on the smoking peak of Mount Sinai. A text so controversial it was left out of the Bible, yet so detailed it contains a celestial calendar mapping every major event in human history, from the first sin to the final judgment. This isn't Genesis as you know it. This is the story of a cosmic war fought according to a divine schedule, where angels fall, giants walk the earth, and the leader of all demons makes a chilling bargain with God himself. We think of history as a river, flowing from one event to the next. But Jubilees reveals it as a clock, a celestial machine of perfect repeating cycles, a week of 7 days, a month, a year. But then it goes further. It speaks of a week of years, which is 7 years, and then the ultimate unit of divine time, the Jubilee 7 weeks of years. 49 years in total. The book claims that history isn't chaos, but a meticulously planned sequence of events. A grand story written on heavenly tablets before the world even began. And who revealed this divine blueprint? An angel, the angel of the presence, standing before Moses in the fire and cloud on Sinai, dictating a history that had been deliberately forgotten. Imagine Moses, having just received the 10 Commandments, the very law of God. It's an annotated director's cut, filled with deleted scenes and shocking plot twists. The angel starts at the very beginning. On the first day, we know God created the heavens and the earth. But Jubilees adds another layer. On that first day, God also created the angels, all of them. The angels who praise him, the angels who carry his messages, and another, more specific class, the angels of the present. It establishes from the very first verse that humanity was never alone. The cosmos was and is teeming with powerful, intelligent beings, celestial administrators carrying out the divine will according to a perfect schedule. The 6 days of creation unfold as we know them, but with a constant, humming background of angelic activity. They are the unseen stagehands of creation, ensuring every detail aligns with the heaven. The angel tells Moses that Adam was created at the end of the 6th day, and for the first week of his existence, 7 full years, he was taught by the angels in the Garden of Eden. He wasn't a naive farmer. He was a student in a divine school. He learned agriculture, the names of animals and the laws of the garden. He and Eve lived in this perfect state of grace and knowledge for 1 full week of years. 7 years, no shame. This makes the fall even more tragic. They didn't fall out of simple, childlike ignorance. They fell after 7 years of direct divine instruction. They knew better, but someone else was watching. Someone who despised this perfect order, this divine schedule, a powerful angelic being whose name is not Lucifer, but Mastema. The word Mastema means hatred or hostility in Hebrew, and he is the chief. It wasn't just a talking serpent, it was an intelligence operation. Mastema envied humanity's place in creation. He saw their potential and despised their purity. And so he waited. He watched. He looked for a crack in the perfect facade of the garden, and he found it. The serpent was his vessel. The temptation was his weapon. The book describes how, at the end of those 7 perfect years, the fall wasn't a random accident, it was a scheduled catastrophe. When Adam and Eve ate the fruit, they didn't just break a rule, they broke the timeline. They shattered the divine harmony. They introduced chaos into the perfectly calibrated machine of creation, and the consequences, as described by Jubilees, were immediate and legalistic. Their eyes were opened, and they were ashamed of their nakedness. But they were not sentenced to death immediately. Why? Because of a precedent. The angel explains to Moses that the law of the Jubilee states that anyone who violates a sacred trust should die. But if they were created on the 6th day, and a day for God is 1,000 years for man, then they were given the remainder of that day to live. Adam would live 930 years, falling short of the 1,000-year day. A living testament to his They left paradise and entered a world that was now hostile to them. For the first time they saw thorns and thistles. For the first time they felt the sting of labor. And the angel tells Moses something profound. Adam offered a sacrifice, an offering of incense, as a sin offering to atone for his transgression. He was trying to get back on schedule to mend the broken clock. This theme of a sacred calendar, of the story continues with Cain and Abel. Genesis gives us the brutal, shocking story of the first murder. Jubilees gives us the calendar date. It tells us that after Adam and Eve left the garden, they had two sons, Cain and Abel, and two daughters, Arwan and Azura. Yes, the book names their daughters, the future wives of Cain and his descendants. The narrative is meticulously filling, and here, the book provides a motive that goes beyond simple jealousy. It says Abel offered the first fruits, the best of his flock, in perfect accordance with the divine law that Adam had learned. Cain, however, brought the fruits of the earth, but not the first, not the best. His offering was an afterthought. It was a violation of the principle of first fruits, a principle tied directly to the sacred calendar, and it was a rejection of his disregard for divine timing and order. The rage that filled Cain was the rage of a man who refuses to align himself with the cosmic rhythm. And when he killed his brother in the field, it wasn't just fratricide. It was a declaration of war against the divine schedule. He spilled his brother's blood on the earth, desecrating the land and further entrenching humanity in a cycle of violence. And we've only covered the first few chapters of a story that gets darker, stranger, and more epic with every turn. The fall of man was just the first move in a celestial chess game. The next move would come not from humanity but from the angels themselves, and it would unleash a horror upon the earth that would nearly wipe out all of creation. If you're finding this hidden history as fascinating as I do, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. After the sin of Cain, humanity began to multiply. The world was filling up, but it was a world out of sync with its creator. And then something happened that threw the entire divine plan into utter chaos. Genesis chapter 6 gives us a brief cryptic summary. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. It's a tantalizingly brief passage that has sparked centuries of debate. But the Book of Jubilees doesn't give us a summary. It gives us the full, horrifying story. The angel of the presence speaking to Moses describes the scene in chilling detail. In the 25th Jubilee, a group of angels known as the Watchers looked down from their heavenly station. They were meant to be guardians, teachers, instructors, but as they looked down, they weren't filled with a sense of duty. They were filled with lust. They saw the beauty of human women, and they began to conspire. Their leader, a powerful angel named Shemi-Hazar, gathered them together. He knew what they were planning was a terrible transgression, a capital crime in the celestial court. He said, "I fear that you will not want to do this deed, and I alone will be guilty of a great sin." 200 of them descended. This wasn't a random fall, it was an invasion. They came down and took human wives, teaching them forbidden secrets. They taught them charms and enchantments, the cutting of roots, and the knowledge of plants. But they also taught them the art of war. One of the leaders, an angel named Azazel, taught men how to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. He taught women the art of deception, of making themselves beautiful with cosmetics and jewelry. It was the birth of technology, but it was a technology born of angelic rebellion, given to humanity not for their advancement, but for their corruption. And the children born from these unholy unions were not human. They were monsters, the Nephilim, giants. The book says their height was 3,000 cubits, and they consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when the food ran out, when humanity had nothing left to give, the giants turned on them. They began to eat human beings. Then they turned on the rest of creation. They consumed birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish. They drank their blood. It was a frenzy of consumption, an apocalypse of hunger that swept across the face of the earth. The cries of the innocent, the blood of the devoured, the sheer lawlessness and violence rose up to the heavens. The earth itself cried out against the wicked. 4 archangels, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel, looked down from the gates of heaven and saw the carnage. They saw the blood being shed, the injustice, and they heard the souls of the dead crying out, Bring our cause before the most, not a world of simple human wickedness, but a world overrun by the monstrous offspring of fallen angels, a world drowning in blood and chaos, its timeline completely derailed by this celestial rebellion. And in the midst of this darkness, one man stands apart, Enoch, in Genesis. He is a mysterious figure who walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Jubilees reveals what this act. He was the first among men to learn writing and knowledge and wisdom. And he wrote down the signs of heaven according to the order of their months, a book of celestial laws in an attempt to restore the sacred calendar. God showed Enoch everything, the secrets of creation, the workings of the sun and stars, and the judgment that was coming, and he gave him a mission. He sent Enoch, a mere mortal, to deliver a message to the Enoch, a man of flesh and blood, ascending to the icy peaks of Mount Hermon, where these powerful, rebellious angels had made their stronghold. He stands before them, beings of light and power now twisted by their sin, and he reads their verdict. He tells them, "You will have no peace. A great sentence has gone forth against you. You will be bound. You will not have rest or forgiveness." The watchers, Enoch does so, but the answer comes back in a vision. The verdict is final. The petition is denied. God tells Enoch to go back and deliver the final judgment. "You were in heaven," the judgment reads, "but all the mysteries had not yet been revealed to you, and you knew worthless ones. And in the hardness of your hearts you have taught these to women, and through these mysteries women and men work much evil on earth." The sentence that they will be forced to watch the destruction of their beloved children, the Nephilim. As for the Nephilim, their fate is equally grim. They will not be granted peace. They will fall by the sword, slaughtering each other in a great civil war. Their reign of terror will end in a storm of self-destruction. But what about their spirits? This is where the Book of Jubilees introduces a truly terrifying concept. But their spirits, being of a celestial and terrestrial nature, do not. They are released upon the earth as demons, as evil spirits. They are destined to corrupt, to lead astray, to attack and destroy until the final judgment. The flood, then, becomes more than just a punishment for human sin. It is a desperate act of cosmic cleansing. It is God hitting the reset button on a world so thoroughly corrupted by demonic and angelic. The waters rise not just to drown wicked men, but to wash the earth clean of the blood spilled by the giants, and to entomb the bodies of the Nephilim deep beneath the silt and stone. Noah, a righteous man, perfect in his generations, is chosen to preserve life. The instructions for the ark are given, the animals are gathered. It is a familiar story, but within the context of Jubilee, he is the guardian of the sacred timeline, a man tasked with carrying the seed of a new beginning through a world, drowning apocalypse, preserving the chance for humanity to one day get back on God's calendar. The floodwaters recede. The ark comes to rest on Mount Ararat. Noah and his family step out into a clean, silent, empty world. The reset is complete. They build an altar, make a sacrifice. The great evil of the Watchers and the Nephilim has been wiped away. Humanity has a second chance, but the secret history told to Moses on Sinai reveals that the evil was not entirely gone. A new, more insidious threat was about to emerge. After the flood, Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their children began to repopulate the earth. For a time, there was peace. They lived according to but the world was not truly clean. The disembodied spirits of the dead giants, the demons, were still roaming the earth, and they began their work anew. They began to torment Noah's grandchildren, blinding them, binding them, leading them astray into idolatry. It was a plague of unseen spiritual malevolence. Noah, seeing the suffering of his descendants, prays to God. He cries out, "Lord, creator of all, and I ask you that the spirits of the wicked who are still alive be imprisoned and not work destruction upon my sons, for their malice is great and their purpose is to destroy." In response, God commands his angels to seize the demons and bind them in the abyss, in the place of condemnation. The order is given. The angelic forces move to cleanse the earth of this spiritual filth once and for all. The chief of the spirits, the adversary himself, Mastema, steps forward. He approaches God and makes a proposal, a bargain, he says. "Lord, Creator, let some of them remain before me, and let them listen to my voice. and do all that I shall tell them. For if some of them are not left to me, I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men, for these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For my the leader of all demons stands before God and essentially argues for his right to exist, for his right to tempt and torment humanity. He claims that without his legion of spirits, he cannot fulfill his purpose. And what is God's response? According to the Book of Jubilees, God agrees. He commands the angels to bind 9/10 of the demonic spirits in the place of condemnation. But 1/10 are allowed to remain on earth, under the command of Mastema, to be his agents, to corrupt, to accuse, and to destroy. This is the origin of evil in the post-flood world. It isn't just human weakness, it is an officially sanctioned demonic presence. 1/10 of the spirits of the ancient giants, permitted by God to test and to tempt mankind. Mastema, the hate, it reframes the entire struggle of good and evil. Every temptation, every act of wickedness, every instance of idolatry that follows in the history of Israel is now cast in the shadow of this terrible bargain. Humanity's struggle is not just against its own nature, it's against a cunning, ancient, and divinely permitted adversary. He is the whisper in the ear of kings and commoners alike, urging them away from the sacred calendar and into sin. This revelation of Mastema's bargain is one of the most significant and disturbing parts of the Book of Jubilees. If this hidden chapter of cosmic history is sending a shiver down your spine, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because the story of how humanity fought back with Mastema and his demonic 10th now unleashed upon the world, humanity quickly falls into disarray. The descendants of Noah forget the laws given to them. They begin to worship idols of wood and stone. They build the Tower of Babel, an act of supreme arrogance. In response, God confuses their languages and scatters them across the face of the earth. The world is fragmented, lost, and spiritually adrift. It is during this his father, Terah, is an idol maker. Abram grows up surrounded by paganism, but Abram is different. The Book of Jubilees paints him not just as a faithful man, but as a scientist, an astronomer. From a young age, he begins to study the sky. He observes the sun, the moon, the stars, trying to understand the seasons and the signs of heaven. He spends years charting their courses, seeking to understand. He realizes that the rain doesn't fall because of the prayers offered to an idol. The sun and moon do not follow their course because of some pagan deity. He sees a grand, intricate design in the heavens, a celestial clockwork of immense precision, and he concludes that there must be one God, one single creator who set it all in motion and who controls it all. At the age of 14, he separates from his father, refusing to save me from the hands of the evil spirits who have dominion over the thoughts of men's hearts. Abram's conversion is an act of intellectual and spiritual rebellion. He is a man rediscovering the concept of the divine calendar, not through revelation, but through observation and reason. But his new faith puts him in grave danger. He confronts his father, Terah, pleading with him to abandon idolatry. He even sets fire to the temple. This forces him to flee, and it is then that God calls to him, telling him to leave his country, his family, and his father's house, and to go to a land that he will show him. This is the familiar call of Abraham, but Jubilees frames it as the beginning of a divine counter-offensive against Mastema. God is choosing one man, one family, through whom he will re-establish his covenant and restore the sacred calendar to the world. He reinstitutes the proper sacrifices at their appointed times. He circumcises the males of his household as a sign of the covenant, a permanent mark distinguishing his people as those who follow God's order. But Mastema is watching. He will not let this new covenant stand unchallenged. The book explicitly states that Mastema is present at every major trial Abraham faces. When famine drives Abraham when Lot is captured by the warring kings, it is a test orchestrated by the adversary. The greatest test, however, is the binding of Isaac in Genesis. This is a profound and terrifying test of Abraham's faith, commanded directly by God. Jubilees adds another sinister layer. It says that on the first day of the 12th month, Prince Mastema came before God and said, "Behold, Abraham loves his, bid him offer him as a burnt offering on the altar, and you will see if he will do this command, and you will know if he is faithful in everything wherein you do try him." According to this version, The idea to test Abraham originates with Mastema. It is the ultimate accusation, the final desperate gambit of the adversary to prove that Abraham's faith is conditional, to break the covenant before it can truly begin. The journey to Mount Moriah becomes a direct confrontation, not just between Abraham's faith and God's command, but between God's chosen man and the chief of the demonic spirits. Every step Abraham takes is an act of defiance against Mastema. When he raises the knife over his son, he is not just obeying God, he is defeating the accuser. The angel of the Lord calls out, stopping his hand. A ram is provided. Abraham has proven his faith, and in doing so, he has dealt a major blow to Prince Mastema. But the book makes it clear that Mastema was shamed and defeated in that moment, but not destroyed. The battle for the soul of humanity, for the control of the timeline, would continue through Abraham's descendants. It would be fought in the rivalry between his grandsons, Jacob and Esau. Abraham's story is a turn. He establishes a lineage that will carry the torch of the covenant, a people tasked with living according to the sacred calendar. His life is a testament to the idea that even with Mastema and his demons actively working in the world, it is still possible for humanity to choose order over chaos, to align themselves with the divine will. The struggle then passes to Isaac and then to his twin sons, Jacob and Esau. But the Book of Jubilees presents it not as a mere family squabble, but as a predestined conflict written on the heavenly tablets. The angel of the presence tells Moses that before the twins were even born, it was ordained that Jacob would be the chosen one and Esau would be subordinate. Their struggle in the womb was a physical manifestation of a spiritual destiny. Jacob the younger is portrayed as a righteous, patient. Esau is a man of the field, a hunter, a man of rough passions. The famous incident where Esau sells his birthright for a bowl of lentil soup is given even greater weight in Jubilees. It's not just a moment of weakness, it's Esau consciously despising and rejecting his sacred inheritance. He chooses immediate gratification over his divine predestined role. The birthright wasn't just about property, it was about spiritual leadership, the responsibility of carrying on the covenant of Abraham and upholding the sacred calendar. Esau's selling of it is a profound spiritual failure when Jacob, at his mother Rebekah's urging, deceives his blind father Isaac to receive the blessing. Jubilees presents it less as a malicious deception and more as Rebekah had received the prophecy that the elder would serve the younger. She is acting to ensure that God's will, as she understands it, is done. It is a morally complex moment, but within the logic of Jubilees, it is a necessary act to keep the covenant on track. Of course, this act incites Esau's murderous rage, forcing Jacob to flee for his life. His journey to Haran to find a wife from his mother's people, the famous dream of the ladder to heaven at Bethel, is a moment where the veil is lifted. Jacob sees the angels of God ascending and descending, a vision of the constant traffic between heaven and earth. God reaffirms the covenant with him, promising him the land and countless descendants. Jacob is now the official heir of the covenant, the man tasked with carrying the timeline forward, and who is waiting in the wings. The book implies that the many trials Jacob faces, his 20 years of servitude to his deceitful uncle Laban, the rivalry between his wives Leah and Rachel, are all complicated by the influence of the adversary. Yet Jacob perseveres, he becomes wealthy, has 12 sons who will become the 12 tribes of Israel, and finally sets out to return to the promised land. The climax of his journey is in Jubilees. It is Jacob's final test. He wrestles with this divine being all night, refusing to let go until he receives a blessing. He is renamed Israel, which means he who strives with God. He has proven his worthiness, he has wrestled with the divine and endured, and the angel tells him that he has also prevailed over the spirits of Mastema. The very next day, he is to face Esau. But the reunion with Esau is peaceful. Jacob's humility and gifts appease his brother's anger. For a moment, there is reconciliation. But the book makes it clear that their paths are destined to diverge. Later in the narrative, Jubilees recounts a final brutal war between Jacob's sons and the sons of Esau. It is a bloody conflict, culminating in Jacob, now an old man. It's a harsh, violent end to their rivalry, emphasizing the book's theme of an irreconcilable conflict between the chosen line and those who have abandoned the covenant. The covenant is now firmly established in the hands of Jacob's 12 sons. The nation of Israel is born, but their journey is far from over. They will face slavery in Egypt, a land steeped in the idolatry and chaos that Abraham fled centuries before. The book states that Prince Mastema exerted all his power to keep the Israelites in bondage and to have the Egyptians pursue them even after God had sent the plagues. When Moses is leading the people out of Egypt and the Egyptian army is bearing down on them at the Red Sea, the angel tells Moses that it was he, the angel of the presence, who was sent to bind Mastema and prevent him from accusing Israel in that moment. God tells Moses to raise his staff and part the sea, but Mastema is still fighting. The book says God had to harden Pharaoh's heart one last time, with Mastema's help, so that the Egyptians would pursue Israel into the sea and be destroyed, thereby demonstrating God's ultimate power over both the human and demonic realms. The destruction of the Egyptian army in the Red Sea is a total victory. They are free from their physical slavery, and for a moment they are free from the accusations of Mastema. They have been brought out of the chaos of Egypt and are now being led into the wilderness to receive the law, to be officially given the sacred calendar that will govern their lives as a holy nation. And that brings us full circle. Back to Mount Sinai. Moses is on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. He has received the intricate laws that will structure Israel's society, and now the angel of the presence is dictating this secret history to him, the Book of Jubilees. He is explaining the why behind the law. He is revealing the cosmic context for everything they have experienced. The angel explains that the feasts of Israel, Passover, weeks, tabernacles, are not new inventions. The Feast of Weeks, for example, is a renewal of the covenant made with Noah, and again with Abraham, and now with all of Israel at Sinai. The law is being given to protect them, to keep them in sync with God's time, and to shield them from the corrupting influence of Mastema and the pagan nations around them. The angel gives Moses a final stark warning. He tells him that in the future, the people of Israel will forget this law. They will defile the holy days and intermarry with Gentiles. They will fall into idolatry, lured away by the spirits of Mastema. As a result, they will be sent into exile. They will be scattered among the nations as a punishment for breaking the timeline. But the prophecy does not end in despair. The angel promises that after their punishment, God will have mercy on them. He will gather them back to the land. He will create in them a new and righteous spirit, and in those days their lifespan will once again begin to increase, approaching the 1,000-year mark as it was in the beginning. Before the fall, the Book of Jubilees ends with this prophecy. It leaves Moses on the mountain, holding these heavenly tablets, this incredible secret history of the universe. A history defined by a celestial clock, a righteous lineage, and a relentless spiritual adversary. It presents a universe where every action has cosmic significance, where feasts and Sabbaths are not just rituals, but weapons in a spiritual war, tools to keep humanity aligned with the rhythm of heaven, in a world that is constantly being pulled off beat by the forces of darkness led by Mastema. It's a story that is at once familiar and utterly alien, a version of our beginnings that is grander, more terrifying, and more. It is the story of the angelic calendar, a blueprint for history that, for centuries, was almost entirely lost to time. All right, that is all for today's video. We've journeyed from the first days of creation to the foot of Mount Sinai, uncovering a version of history that challenges everything we thought we knew. The Book of Jubilees gives us a world filled with fallen angels, monstrous giants, and a cosmic struggle governed by a divine clock. It helps the channel more than you know. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.